This is the, realize this is the coolest seat in the room. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for coming. I know some of you have come from Birmingham, some of you have come from Yorkshire, some of you come from the South Coast, from many other areas. I think maybe Yorkshire's the furthest. I'm not sure. Anyone can get further than Yorkshire? Anyway, I know Reverend Dr. David Hanna and his wife, Kyungja, they've come from Colchester, so we're very grateful that they could make the journey today to make these presentations. We wanted to start on time and then keep the schedule on time because we've got a full and packed program for you. Thank you. Who's new to UPF? Anyone new to UPF? Okay, thank you. Thank you. So I think a number of you, it's the first time here in Lancaster Gate, right? Who's first time in Lancaster Gate? Probably quite a few, yeah. So there's a bathroom which is one floor up, and there are bathrooms also in the basement. Dire emergency, never happened. I've worked here 30 odd years. Dire emergency, fire, etc. We assemble on there, and then it's easy escape is easy. So we have a schedule. It's on your seat. We're going to start with an introduction to UPF, Universal Peace Federation, It's an international NGO, and we're going to start with a short video that gives the worldwide picture. And then we can give a brief introduction also for the national branch. So if we could start with the introduction, please. Thank
you. UPF had its inaugural assembly on September 12, 2005 at the Lincoln Center in New York City. Reverend Sun Myung Moon delivered the keynote address.
In closing, I ask you to devote your best efforts for the development and the success of the Universal Peace Federation. Thank you. Thank you.
After UPF was founded, there was a series of world tours where the message of UPF was taken literally to every corner of the world.
That it is time for all nations and religions to break down their barriers. Through this, the era of one family under God will arrive and last forever.
UPF is God's cherished hope. The founders spoke repeatedly of an international peace highway connecting the world from Santiago, Chile to London, across the Bering Strait, what has come to be known as the Peace Road, and a vision for a renewed United Nations. UPF emerged on the foundation of decades of programs initiated by its founders and carried out in all parts of the world. Its growth and development over the past 15 years has been dramatic, if not miraculous, owing in large part to the work of tens of thousands of ambassadors for peace, peace activists, and volunteers who draw from all nationalities, religions, ethnicities, cultures, and traditions, bound together by a vision of peace, a vision of humanity as one global family under one God. The range of programs over the years has been both broad and expansive, from character education to strengthening the family, from conflict prevention to conflict resolution, from poverty reduction to environmental stewardship, from interfaith dialogue to youth service initiatives, from support of the United Nations to partnerships with the African Union, and a wide range of international organizations and NGOs. UPF has a global, multinational, multi-faith network of more than 100,000 ambassadors for peace who support and contribute to the mission and works of UPF. UPF's highest award, the Leadership and Good Governance Award, has been given to distinguished leaders the world over. The World Summit Series is UPF's flagship program involving the highest level of leaders from around the globe, including current and former heads of state and government, to address the critical challenges facing humanity.
Very appropriate that we are here on the 100th anniversary of Reverend Moon's birth, because out of the devastation of World War II and the Korean War, he and his bride found the courage to dream that they could achieve something. And it is amazing what they have created together.
Programs have been successfully held in Korea, the USA, Senegal, South Africa, Nepal, Cambodia, and other nations. The most recent structural innovation within UPF has been the creation of a set of associations dedicated to collaboration among leaders from various fields, These pillar associations are: the International Summit Council for Peace was initiated by UPF co-founder Dr. Hak Jahan Moon in 2019 on the occasion of World Summit 2019 in Seoul, Korea. ISCP is an international network of current and former heads of state and government. The International Association of First Ladies, IAFLP, a project of the ISCP, affirms and uplifts the unique role of First Ladies in contributing to peace and development. IAFLP brings together current and former First Ladies from throughout the world, drawing upon their experience and wisdom as women leaders and as role models who serve their countries in significant ways. The International Association of Parliamentarians for Peace, IAPP, is a worldwide association of parliamentarians which provides a forum to bring their experience and wisdom to bear in the search for solutions to our world's problems. UPF maintains that any successful strategy for peace must take into account the spiritual dimension of our human identity, experience, and interactions. Based on this worldview, UPF initiated the Interreligious Association for Peace and Development, IAPD. The International Media Association for Peace, IMAP, represents a worldwide professional network of journalists who support a socially responsible and moral media. IMAP recognizes the vital role that journalists play in providing objective reporting to foster an informed citizenship. The International Association of Academicians for Peace, IAAP, is a global interdisciplinary academic initiative aimed at contributing toward the realization of a world of lasting peace. IAAP is dedicated to building professional networks for academicians to foster a world of peace. The International Association for Peace and Economic Development, IAED, affirms the role of businesses, business leaders, and investors to make the world a better place. In early 2020, UPF convened a rally of hope featuring dignitaries including Pastor Paula White, Cambodia Head of State His Excellency Hun Sen, President Macky Sall of Senegal, former Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper, former US Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich, former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, and many others.
I believe that the Universal Peace Federation and its broad set of partnerships in the realms of politics, religion, academia, media, economy, arts, women and youth serve as a good model. I believe the Universal Peace Federation will become a cornerstone to build lasting peace around the world and the heavenly unified Korea based on interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal values.
Celebrating 15 years, UPF will continue to grow through service, dialogue, and collaboration, guided by its spiritual and moral vision of one family under God.
So that gives an overview of the wider International Universal Peace Federation. And that way you can understand the context. We are since the UK branch, and Margaret and I, everyone knows Margaret? Margaret's been working hard preparing. We've been working for many years together here in London, David and Patricia in Birmingham, and a number of others throughout the country. I've been working on Universal Peace Federation activities. So we are a charity in the UK, and we do many different activities. You'll be hearing about them during the day. I'd like to start by asking someone from Birmingham. It's Emmanuel Versailles, if I've got the pronunciation right. Would you like to come up and talk to us about your experience with UPF? Thank you. Just a brief experience. Thank you. Please welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here in front of you this morning to say a few words about my experience in the UK as well as with UPF. Basically, I'm Emmanuel from Eritrea. Eritrea is in East Africa. If you're really following the cycle tour these days, there is this guy who's called Biniam, who's leading the whole cycle team. Anyone follows the whole cycle? The Tour de France, yeah, if you watch that, there is this Eritrean boy. He is leading everything. He's a winner. So Eritrea is well known also with sport in addition to there are like political chaos and instability. I came over to the UK about 20 years ago, which the first time I met Jeremy from Restore, and who directed to guide me to meet Patricia and David in terms of what they're doing and so on. So in that time, I never had any where to go, how to integrate with the UK environment. I don't even know about the papers and so on. But as time goes on, Jeremy and David has almost turned my life from a very, very limited English and to this stage where I start work as a junior accountant, and now I'm working in City Council, one of the seniors in the cash transaction department. Basically, having been this experience, UPF, I really am very impressed to see many people from different countries, different religion, we believe like in one God, putting ourselves together. There are like, for example, the way I come from church, the church of that I go is called Orthodox Church, where there are few, even within the Orthodox itself there are so many segregations, let alone within different religion. But I feel like I'm in a proper church when I come to UPF, because even some churches are very, very focused on their own thing to bring peace. But having this kind of organization, it brings everyone together, no matter of the color, the religion, and everything. So I feel like always that I'm in the right church or in the right environment when I am in this team, especially David and Patricia. They have spent a lot of time and resources sharing their house for us all to have a meeting every here and then, maybe at least once a month. So that peace, if it grows to the universe, you can imagine how beautiful our world could be. The way we are now, a lot of war, instability, crisis, and everything is due to segregation of political opinions, religion, and everything. But this kind of environment, I really, really like multinationals, multicultural, believing in peace in one God. Is really, I like that. So the experience that I got with David and Patricia as overall UPF, it has broadened my eyes. I start to have a broad thinking of respecting people across the board and believing that we are one and the same. So I'm not a good orator. I'm a mathematics person. I would love if there was any mathematical calculation or equation to bring peace to and share to this floor this morning. So I thank you very much. Yeah.
So thank you very much for that. So, experience of UPF. UPF has an interreligious approach, I'll just say this. So we have many people from many different faiths, and we do a lot of interfaith activity. I'd like to invite Israel Johnson to come up for a few words. Israel is an honours graduate from Warwick, very new honours graduate. Congratulate him on getting his first.
Thank you. Yeah, so I've been asked here to say a few words about my experience with UPF so far. So I got involved with UPF last year when I received the Young Achievers Award from Parliament for some of my work with working with migrants and helping them get funding into university. And so I remember, when I joined the UPF organization, talking to Margaret and Robin, I think one thing that really stood out to me was their passion for young people and wanting to do good within the community and wanting to help uplift the young people to make positive impact. So, after receiving the UPF award, I remember they gathered us all into a circle and say, we really like what you guys are doing as young people, and we want to empower you and give you the strength to go forward and do more good works. And so, so after talking to Margaret and Robin, I had a number of different projects I wanted to be involved in. And right now I'm in the process of making those a reality. And so I think that's just a really beautiful thing about UPF where, you can come to them with a dream and a passion and they try to uplift you and give you the different resources there for you to do good within the community and to actively work towards peace. And, all I can say is good things about my experience so far. And, I really look forward to what great things we can do going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just to give different flavors of experiences with UPF, I'd like to invite up Lorna Mara, who's been a great volunteer. She's a brand consultant and has been really helping us in our main office in the Secretariat. But Israel is part of the Young Achievers program. We have every July for many years, we had Young Achievers Awards in Parliament. This year we had it booked for I think it was July 2nd. That was ill-fated date. So we had to, it was booked in Parliament and so on, but we have to rearrange for obvious reasons. But usually there's 20 young people who are really inspiring. They're doing great work in their community. They're supporting humanitarian activities. And they get an award from their constituent MP, and their family comes. They're very proud of them. It's just an inspiring occasion. Please welcome, Lorna has been helping us a lot. I think she's very much encouraging us to develop a brand of UPF and the Ambassador for Peace program. Please welcome Lorna Mara.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Good morning. Robin's already introduced me. I'm also one of the Ambassadors of Peace here. At first, when I got given this Ambassador of Peace, I was thinking to myself, for helping others. So yes, I do help others. But then I took my time to get to know the organization. And for me, UPF is a great place to be. It also helps me hone in my values. Because sometimes we want to be great pillars in the community in our own way. But joining UPF has been fantastic for me. I have never had to see a very diverse group of people where you mix with different people. It also shows you the beauty of life, where everybody is different. And if we embrace all our differences, we make this world a great place to be. I have now come to be part of the family to a point where I give my all to UPF because I want to see UPF grow, and it's made me a better person. It's like when I first met Margaret, I was very straight-laced because I had my corporate hat wherever I went. But Margaret has learnt me to be a bit more gentle, which has been good, to the point where now I find myself talking to a lot of people. I've become a talkative like Margaret. But having said that, it helps you to look at yourself, because within my business, one of my values is about, being a pillar to society and being able to help others. I've been able to embrace that through UPF. It's also helped me in my Christian life. Coming to these principles of peace, it also helps you reflect on, where do I stand in life? And overall for me, as it says on the tin for UPF, we're one family under God. And that's exactly what I've been exposed to within UPF. And now I have a greater family. So all I talk about now is UPF. And sometimes I even forget my own business. It's all UPF in my head. And I want to see UPF grow. But it's a great place to be. And always being here, you learn different things. And it helps you in your business. It helps you be a better person in life. And this world, we can only make it a great place if we all put our heads in to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you for those, I think, flavors of people's experience. I'd like to welcome now Reverend Dr. David Hanna. He and his wife, Kyunja Hanna, they've also been very dedicated to this movement and Universal Peace Federation for many years. So David is very experienced in making these presentations. He's all set. We're also welcoming a number of people online who are following us on Zoom from different countries, actually. So they're also part of this process. But David is a graduate of the Unification Theological Seminary, and he's also the North Region president of UPF and Family Federation. Welcome. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Very good to see you. And I think anybody who comes out to something like this on a Saturday is really a kind of very saintly person. I think you are sacrificing a lot, I'm sure, other things, worthy things that you could be doing, but you've chosen to come here. Thank you very much. I will endeavor to pass on something, I hope, of value to each person. If each person can find something that's of help to you, I'd be a very happy person today. It's a challenge in a way because we're, as was mentioned, a very mixed group, but I see that as a great strength of UPF, in fact. And here in the first session, I'm going to be sharing something about universal values as a foundation for world peace. And Lorna there mentioned the importance of kind of finding or clarifying for herself certain values through her association with Universal Peace Federation. That's very interesting to hear. And certainly it's one of our themes. We see it as the uniting point, as a precursor for peace, for different groups and different traditions and different cultures. This is very important to realize that we have more in common, perhaps, than we imagine at first, and therefore we focus largely on that. I like to begin this first talk with a picture of our world. You'll notice it in the center of our UPF logo, right? So it's very apt in that way. But this picture, of course, it wasn't seen like this until quite late in humankind's history. We could travel outside our atmosphere and into space and look back at the blue planet and see how beautiful it is. And also notice there are no lines or no borders there, like you see on a classroom map, right? No countries in different colors or political affiliations. No, it's just one world. And that means those barriers are not there. Of course, some of them are there in some kind of reality, some, checkpoints and passport borders, this kind of thing. But really, they're in the mind of people. That's where they are, and they can change as well. And we can loosen those borders. We can allow a kind of freer exchange. This is a kind of related photograph, which you might have seen, especially, well, if you've been to this before, you'll have seen, although this is slightly amended. I've got a dry-looking world with 3 little balls, little blue balls. You see those? Can you guess what that is? The large one is all the surface water of the world, like the salt water, rolled up into one ball. That's how big it would be. All the oceans, all the seas, surprisingly small, isn't it? And the middle one is actually all the fresh water. And most of that is locked up in ice at the north and south polar regions. And then the tiny, if you can make it out, there's a tiny little blue ball, which is the fresh water. That's the lakes and the rivers. It shows what a precious resource and what a kind of delicate balance our world is in, and how we have to take care of it and look after it. And that's also a theme of UPF, because peaceful world is not just a thing that talks about politics or these kind of relationships, but we have to manage our whole world and environment responsibly. So here's our founder. I'll have some quotations through my talks from Father Moon. Here he is talking to an interreligious audience at a special program that he convened back in 1985 called the Assembly of the World's Religions, bringing religious leaders together. And he said there, religions should be concerned with God's will for world salvation more than with the salvation of the individual or the welfare of their own denomination. As far as I know, God is not sectarian. He's not obsessed with minor details of doctrine, which often divide various branches of a religion. We should quickly liberate ourselves from theological conflict, which results from blind attachment to doctrines and rituals, and instead focus on living communication with God. In God's parental heart and his great love, there's no discrimination based on color or nationality. There are no barriers between countries or cultural traditions, between East and West or North and South. Through interreligious dialogue and harmony, we should realize one ideal world of peace. Well, I say yes to that, right? So that is very much his vision, which he embodied and played out during his whole life and the many projects that he started, including, of course, the one we're associated with here today, UPF. And that explains why we're looking at religion in a general way, but also, you will have your own kind of specific take and role on that, and that's very welcome, and it'll make a wonderful contribution to the various activities which we're doing. So everybody is welcome in that respect in UPF. It's a little unique. Can you be a little unique? It's very unique. It's unique, right? So that's the approach. And I'll try to explain the kind of something about the approach of UPF as we go along, but also give you a little insight, which is not necessary if you work with UPF, but I'll try to give you in this particular seminar some insight into Father Moon's own understanding and ideas, even you could call it theology, philosophy, so that you can grasp, something about the man and this couple that are leading this activity, but also you can understand why UPF is what it is and doing what it's doing. Right? So that should come clear. So first of all, there's a respect for religion generally, and to recognize that it has indeed a contribution to make. Now, that's not everybody's opinion today, of course, but it's bringing focus and attention back to this, to rediscover, in a way, the value of the contribution of religion. Sometimes religion does not serve its cause very well, right? It's its own kind of enemy, unfortunately. So we have to look beyond that, and we're looking much more idealistically in this way, but looking for the good points. True religious practice seeks to restore peace and promotes certain things, such as humility in front of God, a power outside of ourselves, promotes respect to parents, fidelity in marriage, loyalty, idea of public service is there. And I'm talking very generally because you'll find this quite universal in the world's religious traditions. Also, personal discipline is very much a part of that. Sacrifice and control of physical desires, recognizing that we have to get ourselves under control, first of all. So that means restraint and patience and forgiveness in relationships and working for better relationships. Loving others as you love yourself, this kind of phrase occurs. And love of neighbors, even of one's enemies. I'll also, if it's okay by you, I'll sprinkle a few quotations from the world's religious traditions. Please don't be offended if yours is not one of them. It's just a representative kind of sample, but let's start with one from Islam, from the Holy Quran. It says there, on this topic, prayer restrains one from shameful and unjust deeds, and remembrance of God is the greatest thing in life, without doubt. Ameen. This is very beautiful, but it's a kind of theme, as you see, which is common to the genuine, true religious traditions of the world. Always in world affairs, whether it's politics or peacemaking, whatever we're doing, there's a human factor, right? It's people who are doing it. So human factor, I would say, comes down to a matter of integrity, and this is where religion can serve a good role to help people become people of integrity, and that's very key. I'm sure you find that in your own life experience. You know, we look for people of integrity. They're the people that we can trust. It's people who, in the end, make the decisions, right? So what kind of people do we want making those decisions? People of personal integrity or people who have none, you know? I mean, it's very obvious, isn't it? We find out sometimes too late that a person has really self-centered motives, or they're not really the kind of a good-natured person that we thought they were. So a person's character is shaped by certain things, by their experiences and by their influences, and certainly the kind of values they've been touched by and experienced growing up, through their education, through maybe being helped and shaped by a faith community in their early life as part of, you know, something that their family does or is part of in terms of their local community. And this means that we can, with such people, find unity based on universal values, and we can look to values that are common to the world's great religions, indeed, and philosophies. So, again, I've put some symbols up there, but they're just representative. So, if your religion or faith is not represented there, please don't take any offense by that. But if you have a word with me afterwards, I'll see if I can include it next time, right? So, the unification principle, or the ideas which we are sharing here from Father Moon, provides certain things. It's a new expression, I would say, of religious truth for our age. It's, you know, such truth is in its own way unchanging and as old as the universe, but yet each generation needs some new expression, and we have new challenges in the way that people are educated and aware today needs some kind of refreshing of our approach. Otherwise, they get, you see young people drifting away or tending not to value religious traditions or not to see the value in them. So a new expression is very helpful, and this unification principle provides that. You'll see that in the way that we're presenting. Maybe it's kind of new to you or gives you some ideas that you want to adapt and to utilize. It opens the way for a harmonized view of religion and science, which we feel is very important. These should not be seen as contradictory, enemies with each other, but we need a unified world view that harmonizes both of these approaches. It identifies universal values, as we said, which are present in major world faiths, and does something more to reveal the nature of God as a God of, we say, of heart. I'll explain that a little bit later, and identifies clearly the importance of human responsibility. How are we going to make a better world? It's going to require all of us, actually, to play a part. Every person is required and is necessary to do that. It's something that we have to use our integrity and our knowledge and our wisdom and our willingness to exercise our good nature in bringing this about. Also, it provides understanding for tackling real problems, so insights which can be very useful and put into practice. Finally, it does something, and I think this runs through Father Moon's own teaching, through his many, many talks and messages and public speeches which he gave, which amount to a huge number of volumes. I think not all are translated yet, but in the original Korean, it's over 300 volumes. Such a religious founder and leader living in this age means that so much could be recorded and could be on videotape, and it's a wonderful thing that, when we think of some of the major religious founders in history, they never had that opportunity. And so much probably was lost of what they said, right? And only a little got passed on. You look at the words of Jesus, it put together, the ones that we have, and even their scholars will debate whether this is really what he said or not. That's another story. But it'll make just a little pamphlet, that could slip through your letterbox very easily. Right? But what power, what power the words of the Prophet Muhammad, what power the words of Buddha that have been passed on orally or through various traditions. So, those words have such power to change lives and to change history. But I think much was lost in history as well. We have a certain benefit from the age that we live in. I add here a little caveat, I suppose, for this talk in particular. Yes, we're talking about building a peaceful, ideal world, but I'm talking here about an original ideal or potential for human beings. So you may say, oh, well, that sounds very nice, right? But it's much too idealistic. Life isn't like that. Well, I acknowledge it's not. But the unification principle starts this way because it's saying to have a picture of that ideal is very important. It's something to aim for, to understand how we should be. What should an ideal, peaceful world look like? And, what are we aiming to do? So, in a way, it's stirring up those feelings inside of us, which everybody shares, interestingly, and gets stimulated by. So that is, acknowledged. Also, I'm freely referring to, and I've already done that, right? God and religious concepts. Why? Because I'm sharing Father Moon's view and his understanding, and I want to kind of tell it as it is from, the words that he shared and the viewpoint that he held personally. And, finally, I can say I'm not implying any judgment on people who think or choose to live or behave differently to the examples that I give. It's, as you'll see, we'll talk quite a bit about marriage and family, but it's encouraging us to reevaluate this tradition, which sometimes gets lost in a multitude of other variations which society is talking about. So if you catch my drift, it's not to point the finger at anybody, but to go back to something more original and to reevaluate it and to uphold it as something that's really worthwhile and worth revisiting. Are you with me, everybody? Great, you're doing so well, right? I don't think I could sit all day and listen to myself, right? So I'm sympathetic towards you. This is Father Moon's kind of view and understanding of the Creator. Again, you'll sense there's a little kind of move into scientific approach as well, because he studied electrical engineering as a young person, which is interesting, and found that he got a lot of ideas from that about the kind of invisible world and the nature of God. So he's saying that this Creator God that we identify or come to know has both internal character and some kind of external form, not an external form that we see, but there's something which becomes the external form of everything. That's where it comes from. So the origin of internal character of everything, we can say, and the origin of the external form of everything. Where does it come from? It comes from the Creator. But also, and this is represented by the plus and the minus there in these two kind of complementary halves, there is the origin of the masculine nature of everything and the origin of the feminine nature of everything. It comes from the one same source. That means, in Father Moon's theology and understanding, God is revealed to be both father and mother, or male and female parent, in a state of harmonized oneness, because God is one. And masculine and feminine in this context refer to complementary qualities. A woman has mainly feminine qualities, but also some masculine qualities. And likewise, for a man, has mainly masculine qualities, but also some feminine qualities. Actually, without that, we wouldn't be able to understand each other at all, men and women. And some people say that's already quite difficult, right? But, it would really be difficult if we didn't share something. So these are kind of human qualities and human characteristics, but they are come down as kind of complementary and each beautiful and each important in its own way and as valuable as each other. And it's this difference which is a source of delight and a source of energy and excitement and beauty and harmony. So without this, as I said, it would be very hard to appreciate the world and others. So we all possess something of this. And the nature of God then God has internal character. That is made up of emotion, intellect, and will, also concepts and laws which operate throughout the universe. These come from somewhere, and they are a certain way. And they are what they are. Some, traditions call this the absoluteness of God, or absolute nature. That means it is a certain way and no other way, right? So this is what we can say. And there's also, I already used this language, which is a little bit new, to talk about an external form as the nature of God. That means original energy or something that exists prior to energy in the universe. And energy is a manifestation of that. So it's in everything. It's that life force which is there, and which science actually, at the moment, cannot explain, right? Science actually cannot explain what this life is. We experience it here. We don't know if it exists anywhere else in the entire universe. But, what is it? It's a motivation there. There's a a purposefulness behind it. Where does that come from then? Father Moon would say, from the Creator, him and herself, right? So at the center of God, he defines something that we call heart. That's using a kind of common word, but in a slightly new and deeper way. What is heart? That's at the very center of the Creator and origin of this universe. Heart is the impulse to experience joy through giving and receiving love. It's the desire to want to do that at all, right? To give and receive love, and through that receive joy. It's the creative impulse. It's something very, very fundamental. And we have something of that ourselves, right? In everything that we do that's creative, and I use creative in a very broad way. Even mathematics is very creative, right? And there's a beauty in that when when you see mathematicians looking at, they've been working out a problem and they finally got to the answer, right? Solve the equation that couldn't be solved for years. And they'll look at it and they'll just say, this is beautiful, right? They'll see a beauty that maybe a person like myself doesn't see, right? I can't even read it, but it's another language. But there you go. This is something very creative, and our energies can be put into all kinds of ways, into counseling, into cake making, into, all kinds of things. Gardening. Somebody was telling me they're doing a lot of gardening now, right? Finally got a garden. So a new world opens up in a way. So heart is this source of motivation for creating. And that's in the Creator and it's in us as well. It's the source then of meaning. We get our meaning in life from this, and it's the core of human nature as well. And when God creates in a pair system. We call it subject and object. Subject is the kind of initiating force. Object is the kind of position which responds. And then, it can be dynamic as well. So subject is initiating, object is responding. And everything that exists, if you just think about it a little moment in the world, exists in these kind of paired relationships, whether it's man and woman, like male and female, whether it's, inner and outer, or different kind of combinations are there. So you have a pair system. One example is our cells. We're made of mind and body. There's a pair system right there, right? Our internal nature and our external form. And mind is initiating as the subject and the body is responding. This gets you to do things and gets you to do the right things. So we have to learn and we have to develop and train that mind and body unity. And that's part of religious discipline, which is a kind of corrective way, because human nature, as it's come down to us, is maybe not always doing it in the right way. So if we think of two people having a conversation, then at any one time, there's a speaker and there's a listener, isn't there? And then it swaps around, at least it should. And the speaker is naturally the subject in this kind of language, and the listener is the object. And when a person who's been listening to you, you stop talking and it's their turn to speak, then it's your turn to listen. Have you ever had the experience that you're talking with somebody and you just start to think, are they listening to me? Because often you will find they don't respond to anything that you say, but it's like they were just waiting for you to finish, and then they carry on with what they were saying. So, I think that happens quite often, actually. I hope I'm not guilty of that, but, I may well be, and I'll, watch myself. But, I've noticed that. And then it's not so productive. That give and take relationship or give and receive relationship is not productive. And yet when it's working well, when a person takes on board something you said and then modifies and throws it back to you, so you think, oh yes, yeah, no, I see what you mean. They actually help you refine your idea. And through this productive conversation, then you start to have great ideas emerge. And at the end, you kind of look at each other and said, where did that come from? That's a great idea. We should do that, right? Was it your idea? No, I thought it was your idea, It's a beautiful process. Right? So how to do this properly is something that we have to learn, actually. That's part of peacemaking, right? It's absolutely related to that. That's why I'm looking at these things, but I'm maybe not going to directly tie it in. I'll leave it to you to kind of see the connection here. In peacemaking, you're going to have at any time, speakers and listeners, and you're going to have people who don't want to listen, right? So a subject-object pair is husband and wife in a marriage, right? So that's, again, very dynamic. In some areas or at some moments, the husband may be subject, but certainly, in this process, sometimes the wife is the subject, and this is her area and expertise and knowledge, and she'll be able to, initiate that conversation and things about the home and the children and what have you. And as a husband, you should listen, right? You should listen, and then you should, digest it and then respond helpfully, right? And then the unity will grow deeper through that, because the purpose of this give and take action, it's producing energy and forces that are necessary for existing, for multiplying, and for acting. And in this case, where it works well is where there's a common purpose. A common purpose. There's a little something in the Christian tradition. It has Jesus saying, where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there shall I be. Which I think expresses this. In my name means with a kind of common purpose. And that could apply to any religious tradition. You sit down with an aim to converse and relate together, centering on the things that you both value in common, your religious tradition, your holy book, the words of your prophet or your founder, or because we both have this in common and treat it as something essential, then our conversation will develop based on that. Are you with me? So this is where it can be very, very helpful. Whereas conversations where each person has their own kind of purpose means there are different agendas going on. And that's not good for unity. It's not good for peacemaking, right? So here we can say that energy of God, this external form aspect, is in everything. I've represented it here by little green arrows, right? Just to kind of say there's something at work there. There's some kind of pre-energy at work, or universal prime force. It's encouraging subject and object in those pairs to relate together. That's why we feel to do that. And it moves all these dual characteristics, as we call them, to form a common base for their mutual relationship and mutual benefit. So it encourages unity, and unity is a striving to create something greater. It's like we're better together than we are separate. It's creating something of greater value and more impact. So this is also a foundation for God's eternal existence. And all these relationships, and there are a multitude of relationships, and I would say, if anything, Father Moon's theology is a relational theology. It always comes back to relationships. And, this harmonious interaction of subject-object leads to the things that we value. It leads to love and truth and beauty and goodness. These things emerge when it's working well. Are you with me? Wow. Excuse me, I'm going to have a little sip here. Cheers, everybody. So, here we have God who also needs an object to love. I said it's relational theology. So this might be a new concept. God needs an object. This is the motivation behind creation, actually. So God as a subject with heart loves human beings, and we have a heart that can respond to that. And that's a very precious aspect that we've inherited. And we can return beauty. So the response to love is beauty. If you love somebody, they look beautiful to you, right? So husbands, I can say this to you, right? Husbands in the room, if you love your wife more, she'll be more and more beautiful. That's true, right? I think you'll find there's a kind of other way round which you can, work that one, right? So what is beauty, though, to God? Well, beauty is things which you'll find are encouraged and emphasized in the world's religious traditions, such as humility. We talked about that before. Honesty, that's beautiful. Dishonesty isn't beautiful, to be honest, right? Trustworthiness is something beautiful to God. Faithfulness is something beautiful, right? Something precious. You can recognize that in people, and that can help you endear to others as well. And loyalty is something beautiful. Filial piety, this kind of love for parents and respect for elders, this is something beautiful, and it's encouraged in the world's religious traditions. So we see a world of complementary pairs, and this is where people get the most excitement out of, say, ballet, is when the man and the woman dance together, right? Because that's a complementary pair, and they both have their roles, and they both need each other. There's a beautiful photo, I love this one, of the lions. The lioness has been out hunting all day. That's her job, right? And she's come home very tired, but the husband there is just keeping a little watchful eye over her to make sure she can sleep in peace. Within plants, the bottom left-hand corner, plants have a male and female aspect, sometimes in the same plant, the stamen and pistil, but they're still there. It's a complementary, relationship. Sometimes it needs a third party, like a bee or a, moth or something to help, pollinate and help pass this on to the next generation. And even the crash of lightning is something to do with electricity, which is plus and minus, which is a very rudimentary form of masculinity and femininity coming together to create sparks, right? Wow. So lasting foundation for peace and happiness comes as an individual when I'm working to have my mind and body unite well and work together well in a harmonious relationship centered on values that I hold dear. We can say God, according to Father Moon's theology, but if that's uncomfortable for you, then it's fine, because we're very inclusive in UPF, even for people who don't have a religious affiliation. It's fine. So you can talk about centering on higher values or a higher purpose. If you can identify that as something worth living for, then your mind and body need to come together centering on those higher values and that higher purpose. Are you with me? And that will help to develop yourself as a person of integrity, a person whose body obeys their mind and their mind obeys higher values. This is producing integrity as an individual, right? And that's something we admire. So this is what we have to learn while we're growing up, right? Because we don't have it from the beginning. We have to learn sometimes a hard way to get our mind and body to work together. And in some people, not enough work is put into doing that, right? So we have to think about that. So mind-body unity means a person of integrity whose words match their deeds. We can grow in character and maturity of heart this way, through this interaction. And we can also develop spiritual sensitivity, and even as an individual, we would say, become a dwelling place of God or an embodiment of God. And that is very important, kind of, ultimate goal as an individual, to come to that level of spiritual maturity, or even some people use the word perfection, although that's not in a kind of fixed way. Then, who do we admire in the world? We admire people who have, more than an average amount of integrity, and they're able to show that and display that and live that way. So when I was for my sins, I was a religious education teacher in a high school in Greenwich. And the curriculum said, well, we have to talk about certain people. One of those was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., another was Mother Teresa, another was Gandhi, and I think a fourth was Nelson Mandela. And then the kind of list ran out. Who else should we talk about, right? Well, okay. In their own way, these are all ordinary people, aren't they? But, they have an impact beyond just their own life because of the way that they lived and their ideas and the way they put those. And some of these, they're not universally loved by people, but they have made a certain mark. And it's open to anybody to make that kind of mark and that kind of contribution. As an ambassador for peace, you can do that yourself, right? So that means then once we've developed this kind of individual who has integrity, then the natural thing that majority, not everybody, but the majority of people feel they want to do is to find a partner in life. They want to go to what they conceive of as a next stage. That means to marry, to have a family, to actually bring children into the world, and I can pass this on to them and raise them. And it's something which comes very naturally to a majority of people. And it's a very beautiful and natural thing. So the second kind of foundation for lasting peace and happiness, which brings peace in human society, is the family. This is why we emphasize the family a lot. And that means centering on these higher values or higher purpose, or shorthand, for those who kind of think that way, God, we can say, then husband and wife can unite and find that commonality in terms of shared purpose to unite and develop their own kind of united view of life and raise children accordingly and pass on their love to their children. And that should develop. If a child can learn in that family setting, then they can become and learn the norms for how to behave in society when they leave the family nest, as it were, right? They're going to bring what they've learned and experienced to their multitude of relationships outside with really other brothers and sisters in the world. So the family, from this point of view, is the building block, more than the individual. This is where the kind of model is made that needs to be expanded to the society, the nation, and the world. Are you with me? So UPF makes a strong tie-in between the family and world peace, which is not normally done. But this is the reason why, the importance of family as a foundation for lasting peace and happiness. Now, any being then, according to this kind of explanation, is interdependent. We're in relationships. We don't just exist by ourselves. Therefore, we're created to exist through reciprocal relationships, and we need to work on those and work to perfect those. The process of this, or the what is making this work, is something that we call true love. Love is not talked about nearly as much as it should be, in my opinion, right? It's not fashionable, maybe. I mean, you don't get many politicians talking about love, do you, right? It would seem a bit odd in our current society. But actually, I think we have to talk much more about what I'm calling here true, genuine love. You know, Father Moon probably talked more about love, I think, than any other human being. And he talked about true, genuine love. He called it true love, but that needs a kind of little bit of explanation. What is this love? Because there are many types of love, right? To define it is quite difficult, and he talked, like I said, so broadly and so widely, without any kind of succinct definition. And maybe that's a difficult thing to do, to actually produce a succinct definition of true love, but I've had a go anyway, or other people have had a go on my behalf. This is from the American author Greg Bear. He says, True, genuine love is unconditionally caring about the happiness of another person. I find that quite helpful. There's another that I'm borrowing here from American psychologist Scott Peck. If you come across his book, The Road Less Traveled, also very excellent. He said there, the true genuine love is the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. So it has a clear kind of purpose there. And that means sometimes, sometimes you have to be corrective. You can't, just love people. You have to help somebody by correcting them and pointing out, things which they're not doing right. You have to help them in their spiritual growth in that way. This is a summary with the help of AI of all the words of Father Moon, right? I don't know if that's good to do or not, but I was interested by the result. I said he had so many words on this. Well, AI came up with this answer when I said, what's the summary of Father Moon's view of true love? And it said, a deep and selfless love that seeks the well-being and happiness of others above oneself, that is seen as a divine and transformative force that has the power to heal relationships, communities, and the world at large. Wow. Okay. For those of you who had heard this before, this is new, right? So I'm always trying to research and kind of pick up from what people are saying. And, it's an interesting area. We have to talk more about it. We have to get people buzzing about love and exercising love. We have to teach our children what is true love and the right way of having relationships and developing relationships. Am I right? It's so important. So where do we learn this true love that we're talking about? Is it just a kind of idea we've come up with or some American psychologist? No, it's age old, right? This is a part of our inheritance from the Creator. We learn from our parents who are our first teachers. And the family, we say, is the school of love. Other people use this expression too. It's a place where the heart is nurtured and the character is developed. It's a primary training ground for all relationships. It's a safe place where you can make mistakes, right, as a young child, and you can be corrected and learn and get a good example and feel these things, where you can't communicate them in words, and you come to know it through experience, and that's what parents are and should be doing. So also we learn it in the family, in relating to brothers and sisters. This is another aspect of love, and from parents and from grandparents as well. So emphasizing family as a kind of three-generational construct. The family then is a school of morality. It's the basis for societal norms and proper conduct in the wider world. Wow. Now we're talking, right? So where do we learn this true love? We learn it as husband and wife, where we see God in our partner, and we are learning all the time, and we're coming to a higher level of unity through that exchange of love and beauty. And the couple then becomes more in the image of the Creator than either one separately, because the Creator is male and female, is father and mother. So the couple is more in the image of God. Are you with me? That makes sense? It harks back to very ancient scriptures, right? Living for each other, the family and the wider world, and it's a model of true love for their children. So, the parents need to be that model, and then the children learn from that by example, It's tough being a parent, isn't it? Because you're an example all the time, right? But that's the wonderful way of passing on. So a strong family then is not just focused on itself, because that's kind of family-level selfishness, which we can't allow. It has to be thinking outside of the family, and that's part of the education given to children. So a strong family has a focus higher than self, an altruistic purpose of service to the community. So, if you have children and they learn that you have become an ambassador for peace, I'm sure they will be very proud of that and gain something, and at least they'll be thinking in the future, I want to do something like that. I want to contribute to society. I want to do something, beyond the family. So Father Moon talks about it as 4 great loves that are experienced and learnt in the family, and this is why it's important. And we have to get back to this. It's where we learn child's love, siblings' love, spouses' love, and parents' love. These 4 aspects. He said here, this is back in 1970, I forget the date, but it's an early speech. He's saying, in the family there are 4 levels: grandfather and grandmother, father and mother, you and your spouse, and your sons and daughters. The world is the extension of these relationships. Thus, you need to love the people of the world whose ages are similar to the people in your family in the same way you love your family members. So this is kind of passing on. This is why the family is so key. If you've learned properly to love your grandparents and value your grandparents in the family, you see a person of your grandparents' age outside in society, and you should love them the same way. You could say, this is just like my grandmother, just like my grandfather. I treat them with the same respect. So this is the point where learning has to continue and develop out of this school of love. It's the principle of living for others, right? In the Christian tradition, in Luke 17, Jesus says, whoever seeks to gain his life will lose it. A little paradoxically, that means just trying to hang on to your own life in a self-centered way. You'll lose it in the end. What do you get? But whoever loses his life, is ready to make those sacrifices, will preserve it. Do we get similar things in other traditions? In the Holy Quran, do not expect in giving any increase for yourself. Wow. Or in Hinduism, in the Bhagavad Gita, of sacrifices, the sacrifice performed by those who desire no reward is the nature of goodness. Or in Sikhism, what is that love which is based on greed? Where there is greed, the love is false, not true love. We'll talk about false love after lunch. Right? You need something to eat before I get into that topic. Right? So the third foundation for lasting peace and happiness is a more universal peace that comes then when those people who are on that foundation of individual and family level development, reacting and relating to the natural world, again, based on or centering on higher values and a higher purpose, or their shared understanding of God as the creator and sustainer of life. This is, where it's helpful. And how to create a harmonious relationship between people and the natural world. That means, also, developments in science and technology and in our own kind of area of expertise to develop our career in relationship to kind of managing our environment and producing a world which is, of benefit to others and able to be sustainable for the future. So there's a dominion there through love. We have to love in the correct way and care for the environment. We should seek mutual prosperity and material prosperity for all people. It's where science and technology need to be harnessed for the benefit of all human beings and for the harmonious continuation of the natural world. So we could call this by different names: responsible stewardship or true ownership, or different ideas there. But actually, many of the world's religious traditions are at the forefront of thinking this way and seeking to create such an ideal. I'll end with a quote here. This is from Father Moon. He said in a speech called "Everybody Wants True Love," right? I must go back and read that, I think. 1999. He said, "We are born for the sake of love, live for the sake of love, and finally die for the sake of love. Not only people, but all beings desire true love. This is why human beings, as the highest beings in creation, should embrace and love the masterpieces of God's creation and teach creation how to love. All creation is longing to receive and experience God's love through men and women who have become one with God at the pinnacle of true love. It is a shame that we have not realized this degree of love until now, right? In terms of relating to the wider world and creation, I'm always intrigued how even 2,000 years ago we had a writer like St. Paul. He was saying and feeling, that the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons and daughters of God. It's like until those people of true love emerge, nature is suffering. It's a very perceptive viewpoint, isn't it, for 2,000 years ago? Yeah, it would be today to come up with that. So that's interesting, and you'll have things from your own tradition, I'm sure. So these make three foundations for peace we've talked about this morning. Individual peace, peace in family and society, universal peace. Now, interestingly, for those especially who come from religions of the book, you'll see some interesting parallel there because, say, back in Genesis 1:28, you have this expression of God's blessing to our first human ancestors: be fruitful and multiply and have dominion over the earth. It's very simple the way it's put. But in a way, this is Father Moon's insight and development of that idea, unpacking that idea so that what we see as these three foundations, we could say the first is becoming fruitful as an individual, right? Bearing fruit, bearing good fruit. And then the second is multiplying, not just multiplying, it means how do we do it? How do we do it in the right way and in the most meaningful and beautiful way to pass on to future generations, and then having the right dominion and that love over the created world. So this is not a new truth. That's the amazing thing, isn't it, right? It's been in our hands for so many centuries or millennia, and yet somewhere we've still got a lot to learn, I think, right? So that's why there's this unpacking and this new expression of truth in this day, which is coming through this, largely through Father Moon's teaching as well as others, but, certain aspects of that are then giving rise to projects such as UPF, and I hope you caught that from my little exposition today. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for bearing with me.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you. We'd like to make little discussion groups. So basically, if you could, the first row could turn its chairs around, the third row could turn their chairs around, the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth row could turn their chairs around. And we can form little groups. And please get to know each other. Share, introduce yourselves to each other. We will have lunch in about 20 minutes. But take this opportunity to share about these ideas.